Hello and welcome everyone to class number 11 of the Azon Masterclass series. Today I'm going to be teaching you about selling your Amazon websites. Now ultimately there are a lot of different ways that you could really go about trying to sell an Amazon site, and you don't actually have to do this particular thing. You don't have to sell your sites. You could keep them and try to build as many as you can to build up a monthly income, or you can try to keep building them and keep selling them off. Both strategies can work out to make a decent monthly income. The only problem with selling sites is that you have to keep building more to keep your income coming in. Now, ultimately, once you know how to build an Amazon site like this, and you decide that you're not going to keep them, that you are going to sell them, even that can be done in multiple ways. For example, you can sell site construction projects where somebody pays you ahead of time or even upon completion of building a site for them. Or you can build the sites for yourself, keep them until they are successful, and then try to sell them ultimately for more money. The only problem with that is not every single site you build may necessarily become successful. In general, I recommend for you to meet a number of different criteria before you even consider selling a site that you have built and you're trying to hold on to it for a little while. If you want to get the best possible price for it, you need to make sure the site is completely built. You want the site to have at least one top 10 Google ranking, but preferably even more. The more search engine rankings that you can show, especially for terms that have a decent amount of traffic, when you can show how much traffic you are receiving from a search engine on a regular basis, you can sell it for a lot more money. You need the site to have daily traffic, and most likely more than just a couple of people a day. It's probably going to need to be somewhere around 50 to 100 people visiting your site every day. And then you also need to have multiple sales happening in a single month, preferably multiple months. The longer of a time span that you can show that you are making sales, the better off you will be, as long as you can keep your sales at least steady or rising over time. If your sales decrease over time, then people are going to view it as being a less successful website. So, with that said, the more traffic records, the more sales records, any other things that would benefit the website, such as social media accounts where you have followers. The longer period that you can provide this stuff for, and the better these records look, the better off your site will be in terms of how much it can sell for. Now, a lot of you might wonder, when is really the best time to sell your site? In the long run, if you have built your site and done a quality job, in the long run, you will make more money from simply not selling your websites. However, there are a lot of cases where you might need to sell a site. For example, selling a site allows for quick income. If you are just getting started, or if you are facing some kind of large financial hurdle, or maybe you're just trying to generate new funds for a business venture, you can sell off Amazon sites to generate some capital pretty quickly. So even if you know that you could definitely make more off of this website by keeping it for 2 or 3 years, that really doesn't help you out too much if you need the money in a month, or something really short term like that, where it's just not going to be possible to generate, say, 1,000 or 2,000 or even $3,000 during a certain time period. It can be done with selling an Amazon site. Now, the biggest downside or obstacle to this whole strategy, because you can make a pretty decent amount of money off of each site, is you're trading your time directly for a set income. And when you stop building websites and stop selling websites, then there's not going to be anything left. There won't be any kind of a monthly income. So it's a never-ending cycle of having to keep building and selling more sites if you are trying to do something like this to generate some kind of a steady income. Now, another big thing is, how much does a site really sell for? What should you ask for it? You don't want to ask too much for a site, or else it'll never sell. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can only sell each website to one person. And so you don't need it to be priced so low that somebody jumps on it super, super fast. If you post up an offer to sell a site and it's gone within 15 minutes, there's a pretty good chance you probably could have sold it for more money. So how much you actually decide to price it for can heavily affect how successful this strategy is for you. Now, a general rule of thumb that I always like to reference for selling a website is about 18 months worth of monthly profit. This is what would you expect for, based on current earnings, what would you expect for your website to make in the next year and a half? Now, that number alone can be kind of messed with a little bit. You can go lower, or at least some people will certainly try to buy a site for less than that if they can. Sometimes you can manage to sell your site for even more. If you can kind of get a little bit of hype or marketing behind your website, and to a certain extent sell it privately, you can actually get a lot more for it. There was one particular site that I built that um, part of this strategy is based off of. And I share in the guidebook for class number 11, I share the entire strategy that I used to sell this site. But it was a site where I registered the domain name, I built the website, I shared the site on a marketing website, the Warrior Forum, and I generated interest in that site. During the first full month, I made about $50. So that was all the site had done in terms of profit for me. I'd only made 50 bucks off of this site. But 6 weeks after I just registered the domain name for this site, I was able to sell it for 60 times its monthly revenue, which was $3,000. But this is not the typical selling price of a website. Something like that was achieved by combining some marketing to be able to get more than one person interested in it, not necessarily to create a bidding war, but when somebody knows that other people might be trying to buy this website from you, then they might be willing to pay more for it. But $3,000 wasn't a number that they offered, it was a number that I set and was asking for it. So, what I actually did on that site is something that I'll be talking to you about here in just a few minutes in a little more detail. On the opposite end of that spectrum, though, you have selling a site somewhere like Flippa, where you're essentially auctioning off your website. Sometimes your site can sell for a lot on Flippa, and sometimes it'll end up going for even less than 18 times. It really is going to depend on your records there. Most of your buyers on Flippa are people that do this all the time for a living. They buy sites and then they generate a monthly income off of it. So they're looking for a good deal, or they're looking for a site that has a lot of potential. And one way of showing that potential, or at least showing its stability, because if somebody buys a site, they want to be able to keep it and make a profit off of it long term. So they want to know that that income is going to be stable. So the more records you can show for your website, the more you will be able to actually fetch for it on Flippa. So in my experiences, I have sold some websites on Flippa before to basically get 18 times the monthly profit. In my experience from selling Amazon sites, and I haven't done a ton of them, I've only sold a handful of them there. To get 18 times the monthly profit there, it seems like you really need to have about a year's worth of income. This way people can see how the site performs all year round, because a seasonal website can have inflated data if the site has just been built, it gets popular during the high point of its season, and then you can show traffic and earnings from it at that point in time. If somebody was to buy it then thinking it would make that amount the rest of the year, then they could easily end up losing money when they find out that half of the year the sales are going to be way down. So by having a full year's worth of records, people will simply pay a lot more. If you have a lot less than that and you're selling on Flippa, you might be able to get 10 times the monthly income. And this is just a rough number. It's all going to depend on what kind of records, how much records you can show, the number of search engine rankings, the quality of those rankings can make a big difference. There are a lot of determining factors that will go into it. Now, before you ever decide to actually sell a site, there are a number of things that you can do to kind of help it along, to ensure that you can sell it for as much as possible. Things that you can do to make the site look at its best, to be able to offer as much as possible to be able to not just sell the website, but in a way kind of sell some connecting marketing properties along with the site. For example, if you've created a YouTube channel or a Facebook page or a group or something like that that helps to drive traffic to the site, even though that might be happening and that would continue to benefit the website, if you don't show proof of this kind of stuff and mention it to your potential buyer, then they may simply never know about it. But when you do show them, hey, I've got, a Facebook group with 2 or 3 thousand people, and I can make a post there, and people will, pay attention to it, and people make their own posts there and conversate on a regular basis. Or when you can show them um, simply proof of anything that you are claiming, anything that is a benefit to the website, traffic, sales, sources of that traffic, anything that you might have built outside of your website that is going to benefit your site. Those things can help to add value to the site that you actually want to sell. Now, another thing is the proof that you are providing. If you've had this site built for, say, 6 months, don't just tell them what it's made in the 6 months. People usually do want to see the month-to-month breakdown of especially the traffic and the earnings. This way they can see whether there are any trends that are taking place. Now, ultimately, I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of ways that you can go about to sell your site. I want to at least briefly talk about a couple of these. Some of these are obvious strategies, such as selling on Flippa, and others are ones that I've personally developed myself in a lot of ways, kind of by accident. Very early on, before I was known by anybody for what I do online, I just ran my own websites, affiliate websites, for the most part at least. And I kind of kept to myself. But I liked to follow this one particular forum, the Warrior Forum. Now, things have changed on the Warrior Forum since I did this particular strategy. This was way back in 2010. So keep that in mind if you decide to use this strategy. The Warrior Forum may or may not still be a great candidate for it. However, there are plenty of other marketing forums, especially after the Warrior Forum. They were actually bought out by a company and they just changed the way a lot of their stuff works. So a lot of other marketing forums did spring up and kind of take its place in popularity. Just search for affiliate marketing forums on Google and you can find a number of them. Any one of them could be a potential place where you could find somebody that would want to buy your website. All I did was I simply shared my post. There are already posts that are taking place on these websites. And you don't have to create something, you don't have to create a post of your own that is going to have an immense amount of popularity necessarily to get a lot of exposure. But There are a couple of key parts to this, at least what I think will help to make this the most successful for you. One of the biggest things is that you need to find a forum that allows you to put a link in the signature. That way, anytime you make a post on that forum, people can see the links that are down below your post. At least one link is really all you need to be able to have there. The Warrior Forum does allow that with an upgraded membership, or at least they did once upon a time. Again, that is one of the things that the rules have kind of changed on over time. But by being able to have that link down in the bottom of your signature, you can actually sell something from that link. And that's actually how I sold this Amazon site, was by putting a link in my signature and making not just one post, but actually a number of different posts that helped to generate some interest in the site that I was trying to sell. So what you're looking for is an existing thread. At least this is the best way to get started and have some kind of a quick response to it. You find an existing thread that is about Amazon affiliate websites. So you're looking for the one that is the most popular. So a lot of other people are posting on it. It's had a lot of views on that particular thread. So what your goal is going to be to actually post on that popular thread. And you're not going to be saying anything in your post at all about selling your site. That's just going to be down in the signature. The actual post itself should be completely useful. Share a tip that you've learned over the years. Share something that I've taught you. And along with it, share a link to your Amazon site so other people can go take a look at it. Now, this site that you're sharing and this whole strategy will only work with a site that is something you would consider to be special or above average. It needs to have something creative about it that helps it to stand out. Maybe it has really in-depth content. It just needs to be an Amazon site that you think the average affiliate has probably not seen before, or at least they don't see it very often. So you're trying to post a site that's going to impress people. Now, once you do that, assuming that people are actually interested in it and show some kind of response to you making your post by them making some kind of follow-up response to it, you need to keep an eye out for those, and you need to follow up with those responses. Make additional posts on the thread where you quote the person that has responded to your post, and whatever they've said, make some kind of a useful, maybe just thanking them type of a response. Just all depends on what they have to say. So by doing this, you are, number one, helping to generate some interest about your website. By having your conversation going on a popular thread about Amazon affiliate websites. Preferably, if you can find it, something that was just created fairly recently ago, like within the last couple of days, and it looks like it's been generating a decent amount of interest. If you can chime in pretty early on, that way you're higher up in the list of posts, then you'll get even better results. Sometimes you can just pick anything that's Amazon related that is brand new and try to get in on it really early. That way you're extremely high up. Some of them may not generate a lot of interest, but others will. And the ones that do, when you're like the second or the third post up there, you'll generate a lot of response and interest from really useful posts that you make. So, along with your signature that is at the bottom of every post that you make, this is the whole purpose of the strategy. By having all those different posts, your original one, and then all of your follow up posts, even if it's just to say thank you to somebody, every time you do that, your forum signature is going to be showing up. Then you want that forum signature link to either point to a sales page where you're trying to sell off the website, or simply have it point to some kind of a contact page. When you do the contact page, it can actually be better a lot of times, because if somebody just clicks on a link to go to a sales page and they see, oh, it's $3,000, the vast majority of people will instantly close that page down. However, if you don't tell them what the price is and you give them a contact form instead, then you will have a lot more people that will potentially become buyers for this site. The point is, though, once they contact you, then you have that person to person contact going on. When you can shoot back and forth emails with them, answer questions, show them some additional items of proof that they might be interested in seeing, that makes them a lot more likely to actually want to go through with making this sale in the end, by helping to build that confidence instead of just saying, bam, here's a $3,000 payment link. You talk to them for a little while, you make sure that the site is actually what they want to buy. You can weed out the people that are actually interested in buying it and the ones that are not. And especially, you don't even have to publicly disclose what you want to sell the site for. You can only do that privately for the people that contact you and the people that are showing interest in the site. So by combining all this together, you want to generate interest in the site itself. You want that interest to be among other Amazon affiliates, and ultimately, it's one of those affiliates that would likely be the buyer of your site. So with this tactic, you can actually sell for a pretty decent asking price compared to what you might be able to get for this site other places. But again, this should be a pretty nice site. It shouldn't just be your average website. The site that I did some custom designing on it to make it more visually appealing to the visitor, to make the navigation of the site a little easier to understand, to help people select the correct product for them. All of those things combined, along with the advice and tips that I was offering people in those posts, those are the things that help to generate that extra interest for me. So by doing something like this, you can even do more than just selling a website. This is actually what started me to be somebody that created my own Amazon training courses and creating my own software. After I went through this whole process and I realized how much people really liked what I was doing and had a lot of people, especially privately, telling me, that there's nobody else out there that's doing what I'm doing in that particular manner. It just offered me some encouragement to be exactly where I am right now. I would not be on this webinar class right now with you if it wasn't for the posts that I made trying to sell the Amazon site on the Warrior Forum. Now, I've actually included in the guidebook the actual post that I made, so you can see down to the word what I did. And you can even still go and see these posts in person today, if I am not mistaken. They should still be there. Some of these posts have been viewed quite a few times over the years, but even when I was just getting started, um, I had exposure to easily thousands of people by doing this particular strategy. So all I did was I made my website known. I got people interested and excited about it. And then I put the link down in my signature. Want to own my website? Click here to learn more. And they go click on that, and it takes them to additional information. So now, in addition to chiming into other people's posts on marketing forums, if you think you have something that you could share that is related to your website, you can make your own post. I actually did something like that is also available in the guidebook that you can go and take a look at, where I just taught people how I picked out a new product niche for my Amazon site. But it could be something much simpler than that. It could just be about any particular aspect of your site. Let's say you have one particular page that's a lot more successful with the search rankings or with sales on Amazon compared with other pages on your site. Talk about it. Tell people, what you did or why that particular page is so special. And just try to give people some free advice. This also gives you an opportunity to cross-reference the website, to provide a link to that website, because the website itself, you can typically link to that outside of your signature, just in the actual forum post. This also is trying to accomplish the same thing as before. You're trying to generate interest in your site, but by being the very first person that made the post, then you have all of the focus. Every time somebody opens your thread, you're going to be the very first thing that they see. The story about your site, the link going to your potential sales page for it. So it's the same thing, just typically can offer more exposure, more traffic than trying to attach yourself to a thread that's already popular. But it requires a lot more effort and work too, is the downside of it. So now, I originally started making my posts in the very beginning of November. But I wasn't trying to sell the website initially. That was not the original intention and purpose. So also consider that when you are making your own post. It shouldn't just exist to try to sell the website. It should be a useful post without selling the website. Because once you sell the site, then you'll remove your link for trying to get it sold. And so you don't want everything that you say to be dependent upon your signature link. In fact, you don't want to talk about that link in your signature in your posts whatsoever. Never even reference it. So, as I noticed that people were really interested in this website, I started thinking, I wonder if I could sell it. And so on the 1st of December, a month later, I put up that link to try to sell the website. And on that same day, I also then made my standalone post where I provided a lot of really helpful, useful information. So, with all those strategies combined and really seriously trying to pursue that sale, it took about 3 days. I had a completed sale with $3,000 in my PayPal account by December the 3rd. When on the 1st, I was just trying to get all that started. So that does show the potential for some really fast income, but it also requires a lot of effort and work to do all of those extra things, to do that marketing work, to kind of hype up interest in a website. Now, the other end of that spectrum, the fairly fast and easy way to sell a site without having to do the extra marketing, is to just try to sell it on Flippa. But again, you will sell it for a lot less in most cases. There are a few rare exceptions to that. If you think your site just has something incredibly special about it, if it's a really popular niche, if it's showing an insane amount of potential, if there's anything that you think would help it to stand out from the crowd and have multiple people be interested in purchasing it to the point where you think they could get into a bidding war over it, then Flippa could potentially be the best place to sell it. But in most cases, if that's not the case, if it's just an average website with average performance, you can likely sell it there, but you're likely not going to get as much as you potentially could by trying to sell it privately. Now, with that said, there are even more ways that you could possibly go about selling a site. Um, you can try to look for private buyers elsewhere. There are even other websites where you could try to find buyers, or auction websites where they auction off websites. You can try to use affiliates to sell a website for you. For example, somebody like me that has customers that are Amazon affiliates, anybody that has an audience of Amazon affiliates could potentially find somebody that would want to buy the site from you. So if you're willing to sell the site but give up a certain percentage of it to an affiliate to find the buyer for you and to essentially do all of the work involved in that, to where you just hand over the site and you collect the payment, then this may sometimes be an appealing option. But ultimately, your average internet marketer, especially people within, say, the field of product developers that sell their products on something like Warrior Plus or JVZoo, they're likely going to ask for 50% of the revenue. That's just kind of the standard going rate for referring sales on digital products. But when you are dealing with the actual sale of a website, you can sometimes get away with doing less, to where it might be something like 20 or 30%. But ultimately, you have to consider what the affiliate would make from that sale. If you're going to offer 30% and the site's going to sell for $1,000, then they would be making $300 and you'd get the other 700 from it. Minus, things like PayPal fees, obviously. If the amount that the affiliate could make from the sale isn't at least $300 or higher, then they're probably not going to show much interest in it. It's not going to be worth them sending out an email to their customers, for example, just to make a couple $100s, when they could promote something that they normally promote and potentially make many, many times that much. So depending on the person, depending on the type of audience that they have, whether they have ways other than an email list to reach customers, you might be able to find some affiliates that would potentially be able to sell a site off for you. This would probably be the last resort that I would go to. But if you're really not sure about how to go about doing the whole selling process, if it makes you uneasy, if you don't have the time to do it, or maybe you just need to get the site sold as quick as humanly possible, then the affiliate route might be an appealing option. Now, ultimately, um, there's some things that you should always consider when you are selling a site, when you are dealing with potentially a large transaction online. Um, just for example, let's say you actually want to find a private buyer for your site and you're going to sell it for $3,000 and they agree to buy it for that amount. When they send you a PayPal payment, for example, then you provide the actual website for them. You transfer the ownership of the domain name, you give them passwords for all the related accounts that go with the website. And once the site and everything, all the ownership of it is out of your hands, there's always that potential that somebody could try to file a dispute or a chargeback over that payment. Now, as long as you can show that you have definitely transferred ownership of the website and it's no longer in your hands and this person has agreed to buy it for that amount, you can usually win a PayPal dispute. But there are some chargeback schemes that can potentially target things like that, where they try to get away with the entire website by using a fraudulent PayPal account and making a purchase. And then the owner of that PayPal account figures it out and files the chargeback. Even though you actually provided the site, that owner could actually win that PayPal dispute and get the money back, and then you're out the money and the website. So always consider any kind of a deal that is going to involve a direct payment like that that could potentially be charged back or disputed. On PayPal, if you could get them, if they live in the US and you do too, if you could get them to send you a friends and family payment for the site, you'll not only not get charged the fee for that payment on PayPal, but they can't dispute it either. So, um, Other than that, you want to try to build up some kind of trust with the person that's going to be buying the site to make sure, or at least to get some kind of confidence that you won't get scammed. If you're really worried, you can suggest to use some kind of online escrow service with a payment that's a couple $1,000s. It can oftentimes be worth it for peace of mind for not just you as the website seller, but even for the buyer too. They don't know when they send you the money that they're actually gonna get the whole website and that it's what you've advertised it to be. So there's always going to be concern for both sides. So keep that in mind when you decide to potentially sell your own websites. It's something you really won't think about, especially in the beginning. And once you're faced with potentially getting a couple $1,000s, that can oftentimes make you just simply ignore your better judgment. So when you can consider this kind of thing and set it all up from the beginning, if you just say, hey, I'm going to take payment through escrow, if you're just not going to be comfortable or you don't want to have to worry about it, then it's a clear expectation from the very beginning and it won't cause any kind of problems. Now, in the final class of this series, that will be in the next class, I'm going to be teaching you what you do long term for an Amazon website. This would be ongoing maintenance, making updates to your site, checking up on things like traffic and sales. The goal of all this is to ensure that once you build a site and you get it successful, you want it to simply stay successful or to even improve over time. So I have an entire lesson focused on that. I'm actually going to be using one of my older websites so I can show you some real examples of traffic and search engine rankings and things of that nature to use it as a legitimate tool that will help to guide your efforts. So you're not just blindly, say, expanding a website to try to increase its traffic or increase its income. There are very particular precision things that you can do to a site to increase its traffic and increase its income, especially once the site is already successful. You can zero in on the things that are making it successful and make improvements to those particular areas. So again, I will be covering this in the next lesson of this series.